From the crazy relationships that led to the death of two of her lovers to her scandalous flings that destroyed two healthy marriages, this is the untold crazy sex life of Elizabeth Montgomery and how her relationship with her father contributed to it all. Elizabeth was always overflowing with talent. Though she was never one of the biggest A-listers in Hollywood, she did work with many of the industry's leading men and greatest directors. As she grew up, her roles became more and more risque. She started part in such productions as The Twilight Zone, The 11th Hour, Wagon Train, Boris Karloff's Thriller, and Alfred Hitchcock Presents. Elizabeth's work around this period drew a lot of professional interest in her work, but she was also drawing other types of interest. The men she worked with couldn't help but notice just how beautiful she was, and Elizabeth had the most bewitching smile as well. Unfortunately for her, she found it difficult to find true love during this period of her life. This was because she had inner troubles that did not come to light until much later in her life and after her first two marriages. The darkness eating her up inside became painfully obvious for the entire industry to see. Elizabeth's first marriage was to rich New York socialite Frederick Gallatin Carmen, who was about 10 years her senior. He met her while she was filming a TV show, and the two of them fell in love. They got married in 1954 when Elizabeth was 21 years old. However, soon after their union, Frederick revealed another side of himself. Apparently, he was the possessive type, and he wanted Elizabeth to settle down in New York as a stay-at-home wife. Elizabeth, however, was not impressed by his money and did not want to cut down her ambition for him. She fled to California to pursue her dreams, leaving him alone in New York. Within a year, their marriage completely broke down. But it didn't take long before she got into another marriage, one that could have taken her life when she was just in her 20s. This second marriage was to the Oscar-winning movie star Gig Young. He was 25 years her senior and was almost her father's age. Her father was scandalized by their union and desperately wanted to prevent it. However, Elizabeth ignored him and married Gig anyway. Unfortunately for her, the union between her and Gig turned out to be a very turbulent one. Gig was quite a troubled man who made things worse by drinking heavily. On top of all this, he was also physically and verbally abusive. Elizabeth tried her best to save him, but it was all to no avail. Eventually, she divorced him in 1963 after 7 years of marriage. She was 30 years old at the time. This was a lucky escape because Gig got way worse after Elizabeth left him. So much so that he killed his second wife in a drunken rage right before killing himself. Had Elizabeth not left him when she did, her life would likely have been cut short. Looking back, you would say life had given Elizabeth another chance at picking the right partner, and you'd expect her to be wiser in her choice of men now, right? Well, the opposite is the case. For most part of her life, and with the first two marriages in context, a lot of people began to realize the sad truth about her. She was a troubled woman who was deeply attracted to troubled men. She always tried to save these men, but they instead made her a punching bag. Maybe that has something to do with the fact that most of the men she chose were way older than her and closer to her father's age. Well, the truth is, as bad as the stories of some of her marriages seem, they hold no candle to the crazy scandals that happened with some of the men she had flings with. One of those men, and the only one close to her age, was Elvis Presley. Elvis and Elizabeth met on the set of Kid Galahad, in which Gig Young, Elizabeth's husband at the time, was co-starring with Elvis. Immediately, Elvis set his eyes on Elizabeth. He started coveting her. To him, it doesn't really matter if she is married or if her husband is working on the same project as him. He just wants what he wants. And before long, he made a move on her. Finding out her much older husband understandably was annoyed at this and went so far as to call Elvis an... But that's not all to her flings. Another one of Elizabeth's famous flings was with Hollywood legend Gary Cooper. The two of them worked on the movie The Court Martial of Billy Mitchell. Due to her great beauty, he was quite smitten by her, and as she was attracted to older men, she couldn't help but be attracted to him as well. One day during filming, a stagehand caught the two of them alone in Cooper's dressing room. This sparked quite the on-set scandal. What really went down in there? Well, we may never know the full gist. But other men Elizabeth is rumoured to have brushed up with include Dean Martin and JFK. As for Dean Martin, they both worked together on the movie Who's Been Sleeping in My Bed, and they were rumoured to have a thing or two together on set. But as for JFK, well, his reputation as a philanderer needs no introduction. The two of them became very close friends, but the intimate details of their relationship are quite scarce. But hey, when it comes to JFK and the history of affairs the two of these folks had, we can't really write anything off. But so far, none of her affairs are as bad as the one she had at the peak of her career, ending 2 healthy marriages. However, as successful of an actress as Elizabeth Montgomery was already, her career really exploded when she began to play the role of Samantha Stevens on the hit fantasy sitcom Bewitched. She landed her role in Bewitched through her marriage with Hollywood producer and director William Asher. The man was completely infatuated with and devoted to her. Unfortunately, Elizabeth didn't quite feel as strongly about him. Though she tried to be a good wife, her inner troubles came in the way of that. During the production of Bewitched, Elizabeth met the director Richard Michaels. The two of them instantly began an affair. This was something they should have strived harder to keep secret because when the truth came out, it sent ripples of shock across the industry. Michaels' wife divorced him, as did Elizabeth's husband. Asher was particularly broken up about the split because of how much he loved Elizabeth. As a matter of fact, near the end of his 90-year life, he constantly blamed himself for how things turned out in their marriage. Elizabeth did not enter any serious relationship for about 2 decades after her relationship with William Asher ended. However, in the early 90s, she began to see Robert Foxworth, an actor 9 years her junior. Perhaps after taking time to reflect, she was finally getting over her issues. But the truth of the matter was way more complicated than that. In fact, during Elizabeth's relationship with Foxworth, she had an affair with the former ballet dancer and actor Alexander Godunov. Like most of her former lovers, he was a troubled man. Elizabeth again tried to save him, but things didn't work out. After she left him, he went on a downward spiral that eventually led to his death. Elizabeth married William Foxworth after calling it quits with Godunov. However, their union didn't last. She was diagnosed with colon cancer and tried her hardest to fight it. However, there was no hope, and she died in her Beverly Hills home in May 1995, surrounded by Foxworth and her 3 children. Most of Elizabeth Montgomery's troubles in her relationships can be traced back to her relationship with her father. Though he was a respected figure in Hollywood, he was quite a terror towards her. He did not want her to become an actress, and this sparked resentment between the two of them. On top of all that, he was verbally abusive towards her. In choosing older lovers, Elizabeth wanted to replace her father with a man who would give her the approval she so desperately wanted. However, he was quite aware of what she was trying to do. Elizabeth tried to fight him professionally with some of the roles she played. In fact, when she played the role of Lizzie Borden, a real-life woman who was accused of killing both parents with an axe, Robert told her that she was very capable of doing that to him. What's more interesting is that Elizabeth and Lizzie Borden were distantly related as well, but she was not aware of this fact before she died. Another way Elizabeth tried to fight her father was with her political choices. He was a staunch Republican, making her a staunch Democrat. She advocated for many social causes that she knew would piss him off, but even so, he died without the two of them ever getting to reconcile. Though Elizabeth Montgomery was full of talent, her personal troubles held her back. One can't help but wonder how her life would have turned out had her father simply given her his acceptance. In any case, she will always be remembered for her radiant legacy rather than her dark psychology. If you enjoyed this video, there's a good chance you'll also enjoy the one showing on your screen right now. Click enjoy and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you on the next one.